We're gonna need to wake up, wake up, wake up. We're gonna need to wake up, wake up, wake up. We're gonna need to wake up this love.
Today I wanted to share something I ran across with the Axio interface. I was so excited about this Axio interface because of this Z-tone section on the whole thing. The tone and the input was what I was excited about, that JFET thing over here as well for the preamp and getting that emulation. But in the process of doing a video, look forward to that video. I still want to do the entire comparisons between the 11 rack and this, but midway I got stopped by the issue of this amp out not really giving me a full volume, right, that I was expecting. I was pretty shocked on that. I'll go ahead and actually break this down for you and show you the just an example of what I'm talking about here, going through the input, showing you kind of the input gain here, and then the amp out, and then the comparisons to just me going straight into the amp. Alright, so got your guitar plugged in right here on channel 1. The gain is all the way down. As you can see, we're on instrument. We have passive selective, and I have pure on selected as well. Z-tone knob all the way to the left for the sharp, most pure DI signal possible. So not adding any Z-tone as of right now. So with this, let's just get this gain first and see where this sits. So I'll just play a little something. So as you can see, some of the harder rhythms actually are triggering the clipping. One thing I'm noticing though is that the amp is really not sounding the way my amp sounded when I plugged directly into the amp. So I got the little Marshall over to the right in the booth over here, and we'll show that here in a second. So it's coming in around -3 and then clipping every now and then, and the gain is all the way down. I have the amp out right here going out to the Marshall amp over there, and I have the software telling line in 1 to go ahead and send out to the amp in real time. I can try, let's see if I turn the gain up. You'll notice that the clipping is more constant. The amp is starting to sound more like the amp, but still not quite like the amp. It sounds like a weakened version of the amp. So like I said, I left the guitar plugged into the interface from what you just last saw, and this is the other cable coming from the amp out into the amp. You can see that I'm on the second channel here. The second channel's gain is right in the middle, and everything's very flat in the middle, just as a starting. I'm not going to adjust any EQ. This is not about that. This is about comparing just a regular straight amp input versus the mic reamp signal. So it's so bad that I mean you'll pretty much tell just from the mic on the camera. So especially on those last two chords, you'll notice that there's really no compression, no saturation. It's very little gain overdriven. So that's what it sounded like going through the interface, straight out the amp out and into the amp. I'll go ahead and unplug that. So taking the cable straight out of the interface, let's get the amp out cable out of there, and I'm going to go straight into the combo amp. You can already hear the hissing from the pickups right away. I'll go ahead and play what this sounds like going straight in. So yeah, really, right? Seriously. Even on this little microphone, the camera, I'm pretty sure you heard the difference between this guitar, which is this is a Paul Stanley Washburn. I've had it for many years. It's my my precious, right? That's the volume on the bridge pickup here, all the way up. The tone was all the way up. The neck pickup was all the way down, and the trigger was only on the toggle was only on the bridge pickup. So there was no mixture. It was just the same pickup all the time, same cable, same amp, same microphone, right? So I didn't want to use an expensive mic or something totally off the wall. I mean, you can do the same comparison with the 57 and try it out. So you could you could hear the difference, the amount of gain and saturation that I get just going from this guitar straight into that guitar amp with the same exact monster cable that I have, versus going into this interface to the amp out and the very little amount of saturation or gain that I was getting on the reamping routing, right, coming out of that amp. Yeah, so no clue. I mean, so some of the things I'm starting to think, right, as I was doing this was, am I doing the input correct? I mean, I compared, the front was telling me I was clipping, so I stayed away, kind of backed down. I even increased a little bit till the software was telling me I was clipping, and still the amp was sounding nowhere near the amount of that channel 2 gain halfway up saturation that I was getting going straight into it. Like I said, everything was flat on that thing, and still I had a good amount of saturation and compression with this guitar going straight in and gain versus this guy. So was my gain staging with the input correct? That's what I started thinking. I did a comparison of this DI to the comparisons of the 11 rack DI, and the RMS on the meters were roughly the same, like very little difference. So I don't think it's the input part of it. And like I said, I wasn't even using the JFET. I'm using pure, I'm using passive, the Z-tone's all the way sharp, right? So this should be like me going through the Focusrite interface or any, box that's a straight, just pure DI kind of signal. I don't think it would make sense to color it with some Z-tone if I'm going into an amp, right? Like a real amp. I want the amp's impedance. So I don't think that would be correct. So the other question was, was I doing something wrong with the settings? So I looked at the software, I looked at the manual, I looked all online. I didn't really see anything on YouTube or anybody else had this. So that's the reason why I really wanted to do this video and shed light on this comparison. Is the software, they did do an upgrade to have the amp in real time to be able to send out the amp output. So that was an upgrade, and I have that. You saw that. I did it in real time. Still not giving me the gain staging. So am I doing something wrong? I'd love for you guys to let me know. Comment below on that. If anybody has any info on it, I'd love to know, because I really want this interface to work for me. That's really the only thing seems to be a downfall right now. Everything else is really great. Is it the amp output maybe? Maybe there's a path here. Maybe the input is giving me the whole volume. Maybe it's a circuit or something from there. Or, maybe the amp output is not giving me the full volume of the input that I'm going in, and maybe that's not translating exactly verbatim out. So maybe that's a hardware thing. I'd love for that to be a software thing. I'd like to hear that there's a release coming up where the software, since they just did the one for the amp out, I'd love to hear that there's a release for the control panel software coming out that would allow a fix to get a full representation of whatever the input is coming in the output. I would really love for that to be the solution. I hope that's the case. Comment below and let me know. Subscribe. Click the subscribe button. I'm going to keep doing more reviews. Look forward for the review of this overview of this thing. More so, I really want to do the comparison of the 11 rack versus this, and I'll show those tones captured, the reamping and everything. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do the full reamping until this gets solved, but if I do get that solved, I will share an update and show you how that was fixed, or give an update when I hear anything back. Other than that, I'll probably do another video on the software, because let me tell you, the deal on this IK Multimedia XIO, the amount of software you get is amazing. Like, the included bundle is worth it all alone. Yeah, it's mind-blowing the amount of software you get with it. So I recommend this month is actually the Max bundle. So if this is something you're looking into, the Max bundle and the amount of software that you get with it is totally worth it. Look into it. But like I said, this amp out thing is my only little quirk with it at the moment. Okay, not the only quirk. I have some other slight improvements that I would recommend, but I'll go through that in the next video, so stay tuned.